Good morning, and welcome to the Sunday morning services of the Sierra Foothills Unitarian Universalists. My name is Joan Lactus, and I am so glad to be back here at SFUU and speaking from our pulpit. I hope we can all be here together soon. I'm delighted to be leading worship this morning together with Amy Evans and Meg Dorsey for this service that celebrates some of the positive aspects of living in America, as seen through the eyes of a recent immigrant. We will be reading several passages from a recent book called Beginner's Guide to America. It was written by Iranian author Roya Hakakian, who arrived as a refugee in 1985. Amy contacted her and received permission for us to read from the book for this service. We come together each week to seek the best in ourselves and encourage and support one another. It is our purpose to nurture the individual spiritual path of each member and build a common faith based on our shared core values, which include recognizing the inherent worth of all people and the quest for justice and equality in our community and the world. It's our intention to be a diverse community. As Unitarian Universalists, we welcome all who seek a liberal religious community. We require no specific religious beliefs, just an open mind and an enthusiasm for the spirit of community and inquiry. We welcome you regardless of your age, race, ethnic background, gender identification, or choice of partner. Whoever you are and however you came to be here, we welcome you here this morning and would like to know you better so we can support you on your search for spiritual meaning in your own life. Our services cover a wide variety of topics to help us explore different spiritual paths, as well as what it means to promote freedom, justice, and equality for all. Our new minister, Reverend Alex De Silva Soto, will be joining us in August. Until then, we will invite you members or outside speakers to share inspiring words with us. I especially welcome newcomers today. While our Zoom worship is certainly not the same as being able to gather in person, the topical richness of every Sunday here resonates with the same love and care to support you on your spiritual journey. So if this is your first Sunday with us, I invite you to come visit us more than once to gain further connection with who we are as a faith and a congregation. Before we light the chalice this morning, I invite you to connect to this moment, to this magical, peculiar virtual technology that allows us to be together, even when we're apart, to breathe and listen as we continue to explore the mystery. Our opening words are the New Colossus. This is a sonnet by American poet Emma Lazarus. She wrote the poem in 1883 to raise money for the construction of a pedestal for the Statue of Liberty. In 1903, the poem was cast onto a bronze plaque and mounted inside the pedestal's lower level. Some of the language at the end seems a little dehumanizing, but overall, the poem reminds us what many of us still believe America should stand for. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame, with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch, whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome. Her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed, to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. And now please join in our opening hymn, My Life Goes On.
My life goes on in endless song, a lover's lamentation. I hear a river far off here, that there's a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, but to the rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon fire, our thoughts to them are waiting. Remember shame are undefiled. How can I keep from singing? How can I keep from singing?
Good morning, everyone. Today, I would like to share a very beautiful storybook in honor of the 4th of July. This is a book called Dreamers by Yui Morales, and the artwork in here is quite phenomenal. So I'm going to try to get as close as I can so you can see as much of it as possible. I dreamed of you, and then you appeared, and together we became amor, love, amor, resplendent life, you and I. There's a mother and her baby. One day we bundled gifts in our backpack and crossed a bridge outstretched like the universe. Adios, Corazon. And when we made it to the other side, thirsty in awe, unable to go back, we became immigrants.
Oh, that's weird. I left the group and I came a different way in and I got it.
Migrantes, you and I. The sky and the land welcomed us in words unlike those of our ancestors. You can see in the clouds there are words written and they're backwards. So even though they're in English, they're very hard to read. There were so many things we didn't know, unable to understand and afraid to speak. We made lots of mistakes. BART map. And police officer not competent in the front. You and I became caminantes, that means hikers or walkers. Thousands and thousands of steps took around this land until the day we found a place we had never seen before. Suspicious, improbable. What is this place? Unbelievable, surprising. I found the public library. Unimaginable. Where we didn't need to speak, we only needed to trust. And we did. Books became our language, books became our home, books became our lives. We learned to read. To speak, to write, and to make our voices heard. Someday we will become something we haven't even yet imagined. But right now, we are stories. We are two languages. We are lucha. We are resilience. We are hope. We are dreamers. Sonadores of the world. We are love, more. And this explains that this is in fact a true story. And aren't public libraries such wonderful places? Thank you all for joining me with this wonderful book. And I hope someday you have a chance to look at it for real and just spend some time with it. Have a great weekend. Happy 4th of July.
Good morning. In this community of mutual care, we celebrate the great joys of life together and help share the burdens of sorrow and grief. As such, each week we share specific joys and sorrows from the lives of our members. If you have a joy or sorrow you'd like shared on Sunday mornings, you can email us at joyandsorrow@mysfuu.org at any time. Let us know what you would like to have said. If you have something that you haven't yet emailed but would like to share with the community, you may type it into the chat bar for others to read. There are no joys or sorrows offered to me to share today. So I invite you now into a time of reflection and prayer. Great mystery which grounds us and surrounds us, divine presence known by many names and in many ways. Be with us, within us, and around us as we gather in community to celebrate life, nature, beauty, and diversity, as we share the joys which bring smiles to our faces and the sorrows we hold with deep pain. Whether we share explicitly the details of our lives or simply come together knowing that this community is here, that we are here for each other, that I am here for you and you for me in all our times of tribulations and triumphs. May we, with grace and dignity, be present to the truth within each one of us and within the great bundle of all humanity. In the spirit of today's 4th of July service, I'd like to read a poem by Tamara Labach a prayer for America. God of many names, you who has endowed us with the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, let us remember this day that in this country, there is no national religion. There is no superior race. There is no preferable gender or orientation. We gather holding a common value that is the glory of this country, rests first and foremost in its diversity, out of many ideas, out of many beliefs, out of many views, out of many voices, out of many passions, out of many experiences, we are one. Help us, O God, to never forget that we need not be alike to live and love alike. We ask for forgiveness this day for our national and individual transgressions. When we have chosen inaction or silence in the face of injustice and abuse of power and our failure to claim our own. We ask for forgiveness when we have not known our own neighbor, fed our hungry, or equipped our future generation with knowledge and love. We ask for a blessing on this nation, according to our own faith and forms, and pledge our voice in support of moving closer and closer to freedom. These and the prayers of our hearts, we pray now in the silence, in the names of those who have come before us and those who are yet to be, in the names of all the helpers of humankind. Amen. Finding ourselves here on this day, and now in this space made holy by our connections to one another, I invite you into stillness, to turn your attention to your breath. Close your eyes if that's comfortable. Let go of the worries and thoughts of the day, just for a moment, and return to the breath, in and out. Return to the breath. Return to this moment. I invite you to continue in the spirit of reflection and meditation as we hear hymn 352, Find the Stillness.
Stillness, oh, the stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find the silence, oh, the silence.
So as Joan and I started thinking about 4th of July service and, you know, it's been a tough year, tough 15, 16 months for some of us. Tough time to have a positive perspective on this country. Joan read this book that we're going to be reading from today, the book, A Beginner's Guide to America. We think you'll enjoy these readings of Ms. Hakakian's perceptions of and observations of American culture from an outsider's point of view. The book includes both the bitter and the sweet of American culture, but for the 4th of July service, we're gonna focus on the positive. To that end, we are going to share some of our own experiences as we read the excerpts. Meg?
Good morning, everyone, and happy 4th of July. Today, we are focusing on the many things for which we feel gratitude for being American, and here is my thought. If I abide by the law and I use good judgment, I am grateful that for the most part, I get to live with freedom from fear. I know that this is not true for many Americans and immigrants living here, but it's a privilege that I enjoy and I'm grateful for. This freedom from fear is coupled with the ability to be who I am, say what I wish to say, express my views, and criticize things that are not so swell about America. Between John and me, we have many bumper stickers on our cars that clearly identify us as flaming libs. I drive alongside many other cars on the road, cars and trucks on the road, many of them with flags. Some of them are Confederate flags and bumper stickers that clearly differ from my own views and values. I'm constantly reminded that I live in a country where many do not share my views and they see me as other or someone who's just got it all wrong, just as sometimes I see others. I am just very grateful that there is space for us all. And now I would like to share with you a reading from our selected book. What follows is the voice of the author. Stepping onto the American street. You step onto the street for the first time, an awestruck feeling will wash over you. You'll be exhausted, but alert too. What you will see then will remain with you in the same way that your wedding day, the first day of school, or the birth of a child will always remain with you. Years from now, people will ask you to tell your memories of this day. What you will recall will hardly be about things before your eyes, but more so about the feelings the views conjure up in you. Tourists look at, pose beside, and take photographs of what they see. The uprooted observe and contemplate the significance of those views. The things you will hear will equally stay with you. You will find the air thick with noises you have not heard in a long time, or perhaps you've simply never heard them before. In the past, when you thought of freedom, you thought of free speech as its only sound. But sometimes freedom's best trace is not in words, but in silence. It is in the absence of the whispers that fear spreads. It rings in the humming of a teenage boy standing in the bus line, swaying to the uncensored music in his ear. The swishing of a carefree teenage girl gliding past on roller skates. In the unafraid laughter of two women chattering. In the whistling of a dreamy security guard. In the unprohibited tunes that waft out of the passing cars. In the barking of full-bellied pet dogs, not banned by any edicts, cockily walking at the side of their owners. Or in the stilted yet civil utterings of the shopkeepers. Can I help you? Can I help you? For business is the daytime god and must go on despite all else. In the tapping foot or the clapping hand that does as instinct commands. In all the ways that a people who have not been cowed into silence exercise their sonorous existence. You will not hesitate to fill your lungs with translucent air. If you come from a land where women must don the veil, you will be stunned to see veilless women walk about you. You will be even more stunned to see a few veiled ones passing them by, each paying no mind to the other. The two versions of Eve that you thought could never mix are milling about before your very eyes. This is another American miracle, not only of harmony among ethnicities, but also beliefs. If you yourself don the veil, not by personal choice, but by religious order, here is your chance to peel it away and give your head a good shake and let the wind blow through your hair. What will be even more wondrous than your bare head is that no one will stare at you. And unlike what the clerics had always warned, no men will be driven wild. In fact, you will be disappointed at how uneventful it is to be bareheaded. America has a veil of her own. It's the cloak of insignificance that she instantly drapes over everyone. All you had been told about the dangers of veillessness proved to be untrue. The only one staring at that moment is you, at the oblivious passerby. For so long, you lived under the gaze of neighbors, intelligence agents, or male family members whose business it was to guard your virtue. On the streets, on the streets, people you knew held a ceaseless vigil, monitoring the block. Neighbors were often busybodies who watched the comings and goings of other neighbors. Stricken men and women whose lives had been brought to a standstill by war, tyranny, or disaster sat on their stoops at their windows and ogled. But for the more commonplace fallouts of tyranny, as they affect life's ordinary routines, are less measurable. Apathy, an evil in its own way, is a luxury of freedom. At the voting booth, democracy boils down to a ballot. On ordinary streets, as you see them on that first day, it manifests as indifference. The novelty that you are experiencing today is just that. No one watches or cares much about what you do as long as you do not harm anyone else. Bask in the icy calm of this refreshing indifference. Years later, you might yearn for attention, but for now, you want to vanish amid the crowd and find this oblivion comforting.
Thanks, Meg. So I was raised by a women's liber. My mother did everything she could to turn me into a confident person, and she did everything she could to make sure I was never dependent on a man for income. To my father's credit, he also encouraged me and paid nearly all of my college expenses. I came of age as a sexual being in the late 70s and early 80s. I always had easy access to birth control. Culturally, it was normal by this time for a liberated, progressive American woman to expect as much pleasure from sex as a man. This excerpt that I'm about to read from the book reminded me in a very visceral way that many, perhaps most, women in the world don't have this experience or privilege. It's not something that comes to mind when you think about what makes this country great, but it is very real. From the book, section called Of Heaven and Hell in the American Park. At long last, you arrive at a park. A park is where you have always gone to stroll, people watch, and breathe fresh air. You will spot the familiar water fountain, but wonder if it is safe to drink from. Yes, go ahead. American pipes deserve your trust. And yet, many pedestrians stroll past with fashionable water bottles, with ergonomically designed spouts, with added twists of herbs and vitamins to bolster health and the manufacturer's price. If you happen to be at the park on a mild, sunny day, you will see much that resembles what you expect. You will find perfectly trimmed shrubs, orderly flower gardens, a fountain or two inside a majestic pool with spouting lions or other stony creatures beneath its shower. There will be benches under the pleasant shade of old trees, playgrounds with children swinging on the swings or sliding down the slides, tables with the elderly hunched over them, some playing board games. But unlike parks you're used to, you will also see runners speeding past, oblivious to everything but music in their ears. Men with inflamed cheeks, their foreheads wet with sweat, women with their ponytails bobbing to each football. Running was what you did when you had no choice, because you were being chased by gangs or agents of the intelligence ministry. Here, not only is running a leisure act, but people pay to hang off bridges and jump out of airplanes. What you knew to be conditions of distress are astonishingly a sort of sport, a way to spice up the calm course of daily American life. Far more terrifying than the bungee jumpers are two men, arms looped around each other's arms, hands tucked in each other's back pockets. You knew two kinds of gay men in your country: the gay men among the powerful, whom everyone knew were gay, but dared not call them so, and were therefore always safe in the silence granted to them. Then there were the ordinary gay men, who were harassed and treated violently by average citizens and authorities alike. That is why seeing two men walking together scares you, until you remember you are here, in the land of whatever you wish to do goes, as long as you do not harm anyone while at it. In the absence of all the official and unofficial busybodies who kept watch over you in the past, not to mention God and his self-appointed lookouts, here taboos stand a chance of falling away. Your American partner is less likely to feel squeamish about your body's natural cycles and more likely to think of pleasure as a currency whose values grows when exchanged. As you hide less, be it inside clothes or timidity, and apologize less, you will find shame washing away like dust from a window after a good rain. Your knowledge of sex proves to have been woefully limited. You have imagined it as a business-like affair, physical give and take unfolding in a set of predetermined acts. But here, with the right partner, sex will be play. So much so that there is an industry producing toys and other accoutrements to facilitate the fun, publications to guide and arouse, virtual communities where the private can become less so. You will discover that your body can be something unlike what you once knew. The former autocrat's most elemental exercise of control was to disrupt the relationship you had with material life, starting with your body. Once he achieved that, you lived without desire. Everything else followed. Your body became a mere inconvenience, a beast to tame and treat aesthetically, a nuisance with needs you had to satisfy, a machine you had to feed when food was scarce, or keep cool or warm when neither was possible, and keep clean when disease abounded. Your body had always worked against you. Now, it is no longer a wellspring of anxiety. And if you get to know it, it can at times give you delight. Lie there and be caressed. A lover's attention may finally let you know your body in ways you never have. You will experience pleasure where you had not thought pleasure could burrow. Here, where the morality police do not bang on the door, the neighbors cease to snoop, the veil falls and shame follows suit. The body is the blank slate for all manner of joy to register upon this, for joy to register. Upon this is what an American lover might show you. This will always be a way. There were all, last line, I messed it up. There will always be a way to love or simply to be together, no matter the circumstance.
Thank you, Amy. The last reading from the book is called Resume Writing. Brace yourself for job counseling. If you are a man from a chauvinistic culture, you will loathe the idea that both you and your wife must attend these sessions and other resettlement meetings too. Worse yet, you and your wife, whom you have never allowed to work outside the home, must work, whatever the job that comes along may be. The orientation class is usually taught by female counselors, the bossy, unmarried kind you would not want your wife to associate with. You speak to her through an interpreter. He meticulously translates everything except for your despair. She wants you to write a resume, which every job advertisement requires you to have. On your next visit with her, you will have to bring a first draft of your resume. She writes the word self-sufficient on the whiteboard. This is what you have to become within 3 or at most 6 months. It does not matter if you like the work or if you are suited for it. Attending to your hopes and plans for the future is not her concern. On the progress reports she has to turn into her bosses, there are no boxes for empathy. You see, all bureaucracies are brainless, no matter how many oceans you cross. However you feel about it, you must write that resume. You have yet to fully grasp that while you were taking one day at a time to cope with the crises of your old life, many in America were enjoying all manner of personal enrichment, attending college, apprenticing, taking on volunteer positions. They took up hobbies that would make them more appealing to their future employers, competing in sports, playing instruments. All the feats you performed to escape and outfox every danger, which seemed like major triumphs at the time, warrant no mention now. There is no place on the resume for swimming across the Rio Grande several times to make a final safe passage, or surviving the crossing on foot despite the crooked coyotes. You cannot brag about being the only person who survived the massacre in your village and get no credit for successfully bribing corrupt customs officials or perfectly forging exit documents. That was remarkable in the other place, where everyone saw what you saw, shed tears over the same grief, and worked as hard for the same paltry pay. Under normal circumstances, you're passed as the material of fantasies, nothing that belongs to the pages of a resume. You can ably walk through blistering heat for several days without food or water, accurately identify medicinal plants for emergency wound dressing, stand straight-faced before guards who have detained you and lie your way to freedom. None of these matter now, not on your American resume. What jobs would you list under employment? Prisoner, peddler, dissident, persistent green card applicant? Those who said what does not break you makes you stronger were merely consoling you. The suffering you endured falls under no skill, experience, or education, and it does not qualify you for a job. It only tells an employer the details of a past you would rather forget, let alone have others learn. When I read this passage of the book, it made me think about students that I taught at River City High School in West Sacramento in the 90s. I taught physics and chemistry at River City, but I also taught in a program that was called Sheltered Science. West Sacramento was home to a lot of recent immigrants, and so River City High School offered programs geared to instruct them. Many of the students had basic conversational English fluency, but not enough to study high school physics. So I taught a course that was slower paced and more visually oriented. Many of them had studied physics and chemistry in their home countries, so they just needed to transfer that knowledge to English. One of the things I loved about these classes was that the students seemed to appreciate the value of an education in a way that my American-born students didn't. The students were from all over the world, Central and South America, Asia, the Middle East, and they had life experiences that I couldn't imagine. They had been in wars, experienced persecution and fear, and may have fled their homes, leaving everything behind. And yet they seemed not resentful about the lives they had lost, but dedicated to taking advantage of the new life they were being offered. I had a student from Vietnam who had spent several years in a Cambodian refugee camp and had only been in his country for a year or two. I was helping him register for his classes, and I noticed that he was signing up for Spanish. I asked if he thought that was really a good idea, since he was only just learning English. He told me he had seen that in order to be admitted to the UC system, he had to have a foreign language, and neither Vietnamese nor English would count. Another thing students often did in order to achieve their particular goals was to exaggerate their ages upwards or downwards. They could do this because oftentimes they didn't have documentation if they arrived as refugees, so their parents could give whatever birth date suited them. Some exaggerated their ages upwards, saying they were 16 when they were only 14, for example, because they wanted to finish school sooner so they could work. Others would exaggerate their ages downward, saying they were 16 when they were really 18 or 19, so that they could attend high school, which was free, rather than have to pay to go to community college to learn English. So in the same class, I would have large bearded men and tiny prepubescent boys, all claiming to be 16. They all knew what was going on. They knew each other's ages, but they kept each other's secrets. They came from places where keeping secrets from government agencies was an essential survival skill. I admired their commitment to getting an education. An American high school education could alter the entire trajectory of their lives. So they worked together to make sure everyone was successful, no matter their size, age, or history. Like the resume writers in the passage from the book, they were ready to shed their pasts and work together to get started on their futures. Thank you.
It is often said that the offering is the sacrament of the free church. That is to say, everything this congregation is and has is only what we bring to it: our time, our talents, and our treasures. In person, this is embodied by the powerful ritual of literally passing the plate and chipping in. With our online services, however, we ask that you contribute to our collection after the service by going to our website or using text to give. As part of our ethic of generosity, we also split our monthly collection with a local community organization aligned with our values. This month, the Share the Plate recipient is the Auburn Interfaith Food Closet, which provides nutritious food to individuals and families in the Auburn area who do not have sufficient resources to purchase it themselves. Thank you for your generosity.
And now please join in our closing hymn, Let It Be a Dance.
Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Let a dancing song be heard. Play the music, say the words, and fill the sky with sailing birds. Let it be a dance, let it be a dance, let it be a dance. Learn to follow, learn to lead. Feel the rhythm, feel the need to reap the harvest, plant the seed. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Everybody turn and spin. Let your body learn to bend. And like a willow with the wind. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. A child is born, the old must die. A time for joy, a time to cry. Take it as it passes by. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance we do. May I have this dance with you through the good times and the bad times too. Let it be a dance. Morning star comes out at night. Without the dark there is no light. If nothing's wrong then nothing's right. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let it be a dance. Let the sunshine, let it rain. Share the laughter, bear the pain. And round we go again. Let it be a dance.
I close with these words, also from Ms. Sakokian. However resilient you may be, you might still find it hard to withstand the hostile racket on the news. And yet you must do just that in whatever way you can. If talking, reasoning, and brooding fail, you must overcome your anxiety by simply doing things to occupy your mind. If you have no hobbies, pick up crocheting or plant a few blooming bushes in the yard. And if these do not appeal to you, try singing some hymns or incantations. The latter can be especially affirming. If their tune is familiar and their words fitting, such a song can be a lullaby and a battle cry at once. Adapt any song, the more patriotic the better, and fashion it in whatever way you wish to reflect your own hopes and dreams. No one will inject you into the American story. You must do it yourself. Remember that the spacious skies and amber waves of grain and purple mountain majesties alone cannot make a country if there are no people who lovingly work to make it livable. The American mountains are grand, the nature dazzling, but beautiful landscapes do not always make for happy nations. The people who envision just societies and those who work to build them do. You must not be silent. You must blare these truths in whatever way possible. You must create your own anthems, speaking of the majesty of your own presence. Now please join in our Closing words to extinguish the chalice. As we go forth,
May we carry the flame
of
peace and love until we meet again. Blessed be.